couple of more. This is number 59. Again, you can see this got an asterisk, so I've altered it just a little bit to help you practice some different ways you're going to see this. So here, the first thing we want to do is distribute. Always distribute first. So whenever we distribute, we have 6 times x squared, and we have 6 times 1/3. 6 times x squared is 6x squared. 6 times 1/3, 3 will go into 6 2 times. 2 times 1 is 2, equals to 13x. Then we want to put this in decreasing power and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to bring this 13x over. It's going to change signs. Positive on the right means negative on the left. Plus 2 equals to 0. I look for a greatest common factor. I do not have a greatest common factor. So I'm going to leave it this and go to bottoms up. So whenever I'm looking at bottoms up, I have to say 6 times 2, which is 12. So I have x squared minus 13x plus 12 is equal to 0. Again, I am going to the caboose. The signs will be the same, some same, setting up my two binomials. So I have x minus, x minus. They are the same, they are both, whatever this first sign is. Then what are factors of 12 that add and give me 13? That's going to be 12 and 1. Because these are the same sign, it does not matter which order you put these in. Bottoms up, I multiplied in. I must divide out. So I'm going to divide here by 6 and reduce wherever I can. In this first parenthesis, I can reduce. So this is x minus 2. I have to bottoms up 6 right here. 6x minus 1 equals to 0. I haven't done this the last couple of times, but I do want you to see. Wherever you've multiplied into, I can check it. X times 6x is 6x squared. Negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2 here. So that checks out. Set each one of those binomials equal to 0. X minus 2 equals to 0. 6x minus 1 equals to 0. Add 2. So x equals 2. Add 1. 6x is equal to 1. Divide by 6, and x is 1/6. So when I write my final answer is 1/6, 2. And again, I can check that. That's a comma. I can check that by plugging it in using my calculator. On this one, there are 2 ways to work this particular problem. I want to show you both. I've modified it just a little bit, changing that to a 9. If I look at this, I have a squared term right here. And what I do notice about this 9 is that it's a perfect square, and that is pretty. So I can go back and just remember, what do I do to undo a squared? I actually take the square root. What you do to the left, you must do to the right. So I could take the square root of both sides. What that's going to give me is this. The square root and the square root are going to cancel, and I'm simply going to have x minus 2. When you take the square root of both sides, you cannot forget that you have plus or minus. The square root of 9 is 3. You cannot forget that. Now when you go to solve it for x and add 2 to both sides, here's what you have. You have 2 plus or minus 3, which means you have 2 things. X is 2 plus 3, and x is 2 minus 3. So x is going to equal to 5, or x is going to equal to negative 1. Now this is a short and easy if you can see it. It's going to end up being 2 different equations right here. So I want to show you this another method. So we have x minus 2 squared is equal to 9. Now on this one, I have to look at this, and I have a binomial square. I can do it 2 things. I could say this is x minus 2 times x minus 2 is equal to 9, and I can FOIL this, or I can square double square. I hope by now you've learned to square double square. So let's walk through it. Square the first number. The product here is negative 2x. Double this, and that's negative 4x. Always add the square of the last. Negative 2 squared is positive 4 equals to 9. If you FOIL this out, you're eventually going to get that very same answer. Then we go through and we do what we did. The 9 comes over, and it becomes a negative 9, or I subtract 9 from both sides. And I have x squared minus 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. And I factor. I set up my two binomials equal to 0. The signs will be different. One's a plus, and one's a minus. What are factors of 5 that subtract and give me 4? It's going to be 5 and 1, and 5's bigger, so it's going to go here, and 1's going to go with the positive. Once we get to that point, you set each one equal to 0. X plus 1 equals to 0. X minus 5 equals to 0. Subtract 1, and we have x equals negative 1. Add 5, and we have x equals positive 5. In both cases, we get the same answer. Both times, we have the answer that we would write in the blank, negative 1, 5. Ooh, my braces are really bad. Negative 1, 5. So even though this one's quicker and shorter, you have to remember to write plus or minus 3 and then remember how to solve it. Here, you would square, double square. I'm hoping you're square, double squaring or foiling, and then factoring it out. So this is solving equations by factoring. You're going to go back and you're going to look at doing some problems on your own, and it will be these problems that you'll have in class.